everyone, my name is Antonio and I'm here with the Audrain Automobile Museum. And today we're riding a very special motorcycle, the Ducati Panigale V4r. And this is arguably the most pretty bike in the world, that only second to the Ducati 916, my favorite motorcycle of all time. When Ducati unveiled the Panigale V4 in 2018, I had the same feelings that I felt when I was a little boy when I first saw the 916. And you can imagine my excitement when this Panigale V4 was acquired for the Audrain collections. Now, the V4 was a big step for Ducati in terms of a brand. It was not the first V4 that they had produced. If you remember back in 2008, they unveiled the ultra limited edition Ducati Desmo 16, which was essentially a dumbed down 2006 MotoGP bike for the street. And that was a limited production of 1,500, and it costs around $70,000. Maron, that's a lot of money for a motorcycle. So in 2018, Ducati realized that in order for them to win in World Superbike again, they had to make a V4. They had to get more power out of this platform. And they had plenty of experience with all of the V4 motorcycles that they used in MotoGP. Now the first Panigale, the 1199 that they did in 2012, was a real handful. Beautiful bike, but very, very difficult to ride. And they were unable to win in World Superbike with the 1199. So they tried to make it bigger with the 1299, and again, they were unsuccessful at clinching that illustrious World Superbike Championship. They came out with the V4, and last year in World Superbike, Alvaro Bautista, although he did not win the World Championship, he was very close. He was able to win around 15 races in a row. That's huge. And this bike was destroying the other bikes on the track. Unfortunately, Johnny Ray and his ultra-fast Kawasaki ZX-10 was able to clinch the championship for a 5th time in a row. But I digress. So this bike that we're riding is the V4R. The base model is the V4. Then they have the V4S with Öhlins suspension and other gizmos here and there. The stock horsepower of the V4 is 214 horsepower, an insane amount of power for a superbike. The bike that we're riding today, the V4R, stock has 221 horsepower. As you can tell with the sound, this bike is fitted with the optional full Akrapovic exhaust system, which brings the horsepower up to 234. 234 on a motorcycle! Woo! My mom would not be happy if I was riding this. Now the electronics on this bike are extremely advanced. It has a 6-axis IMU. IMU stands for, I forget, so I'll just put it in later. So it has a 6-axis IMU, which gives you a ton of tech. It has a multi-step traction control, wheelie control, side slip control, angle controlled ABS that works with the traction control to keep you safe. And although this is really loud and fast, it's very easy to ride. The quick shifter is up and down, which means I don't have to use the clutch to shift gears. I only have to use the clutch to let off in first gear. Now, the bike is extremely loud, but you might pick up on the clack, clack, clack of the dry clutch. That is a Ducati signature. The unveiling of the V4 It didn't have a dry clutch, but they brought it back for the V4r. Now you might ask, why do you have a dry clutch? It requires more maintenance. You got to change the clutch plates. Well, the reason why is, on a race bike, you want to have as much horsepower coming from the engine to the rear wheel. It allows you to extract as much horsepower as possible. Now the riding position of this, it's ultra comfortable. As you can imagine, this bike is a real rocket ship, but very, very comfortable, easy to ride. You'll notice, if you ever ride a Panigale, that the heat from the engine and the exhaust is horrible. Your body gets cooked. I can feel the heat coming up into my chest from my backside because the vertical cylinder is right here on the seat. But they do that for weight distribution. What's interesting about the Panigale is it uses the engine as a stress frame, which essentially means that the engine is the frame of the motorcycle. That allows everything to be connected to the rider, and you have a wonderful feeling when you ride this bike. So what separates a V4r from a standard V4? Well, I mentioned the exhaust. It's got the same electronics package, but it has extremely, extremely expensive Öhlins suspension, which we see here in the front. Now, I must say I'm partial to these bikes. I own a Panigale V2, but this is a lot different than the Panigale V2. The handling of this is more or less the same, but the clutch, maybe because it's a dry clutch, is a lot more grabby and it's more angry. It's less forgiving. But again, this is a race bike. What we're riding here is essentially what Chaz Davis and Scott Redding are currently using in World Superbike. It's slightly dumbed down. It's a little bit heavier because it's got mirrors, lights, you know, the boring stuff. But you need to have it on a street legal motorcycle. Now, when this was released, it was the most powerful, lightest Ducati ever made, but it's been trumped by the Panigale V4 Superleggera, which was just released a couple months ago. Same horsepower, 234, but a lot lighter. This is around 365 pounds dry. The Superleggera is 335 pounds wet. And from the road tests that I've seen, people describe this as extremely lethargic compared to the Superleggera. Maybe one day I'll be able to ride one and let you know what I think. Now, if you look at the front of this bike, it's extremely aggressive with these LED eyebrows at the front. This bike was featured in our last exhibition at the museum, shining bright. As you could tell, so we have our LED lights at the front, and then it's got bi-xenon projectors underneath. Really cool. The lights work as a styling feature on the motorcycle, and it makes it very, very aggressive to look at. Now, this bike is fitted with some optional goodies. Carbon fiber tail guard, carbon fiber up here on the tank. It's got this lever guard here on my right side. I don't know if you can see that. We'll get a shot of it. To protect the front brake if you're racing. If another rider brushes up against the front brake, it won't pull it. One thing you'll notice when you look at the front of this bike are these winglets here. Now, the winglets are for extra downforce when you're at speed. They generate about 70 pounds of downforce at around 160 miles an hour. And basically what that does is keeps the front end down when you're on the track and you're approaching 200. They take away from the style a little bit, but there is a noticeable difference from what I've heard with these wings. So you notice the tune on the quick shifter when you ride one of these things is ultra crisp. I have never received a false neutral while riding it. Gives you a ton of confidence. And that's what you need on the track. You need confidence. You need to worry about your lines and how fast you can get around the track, and not worry about if your machine is going to be reliable or not. Now this bike comes with 3 different riding modes: street, sport, and race. And the electronics change when you put it into the different modes. Right now we're in race because I'm feeling extra racy today. And when you put the bike in race mode, it lowers the levels of the electronics and keeps it more raw. But by no means is it intimidating. It's actually very easy to ride. But when you crack that throttle open, you better be prepared for the beast that is the Panigale V4r.
If you like these videos, let your friends know. Subscribe, comment, share.